I'm Eleanor, though friends call me Ellie, a woman who once thrived sketching Brighton's restless waves, believing I'd tamed life's quiet edges beside my husband, James. That fragile peace shattered when his phone glowed with Isabelle's words. Last night was magic, my love. My pulse roared as I uncovered 6 months of betrayal, his stammered confessions spilling out under my icy stare. Later, her voice slithered through my phone, dripping venom. He's mine now, you naive fool. Worse, James had twisted innocent chats with a bookseller into a paranoid lie, fueling his deceit. I fled, flung his desperate note into the sea, and clawed my way back through paint and fury. What happens when trust crumbles and a woman rebuilds from ruin? Step into my tempest, where secrets sting like salt and resilience rises. Come, hear my story. I still taste the warmth of those early days with James, setting out the tea tray in our Brighton flat as the sea's restless hum curled through the window. I loved how we'd laugh over nothing, racing along the pier while he snapped photos of me against the bruised sunset. His voice soft as he called me his muse. I'd pour the tea, steam rising like our dreams, and we'd talk of a bigger house, a scruffy dog to chase the waves, a life I thought unshakable. I see his crooked smile now, feel my hand in his as we strolled the pebbled shore, and my chest tightens with how fiercely I believed in us. I built everything around him. Those quiet evenings when the flat glowed gold and he'd kiss me, salty from the wind, promising forever. I lived in that promise, blind to how his late nights crept in, how I'd excuse them as work while he typed away in the dark. I told myself love bends, doesn't snap, and I kept pouring tea, kept dreaming, kept trusting. I stand here tonight, the flat hollow around me, and I marvel at how long I clung to that fragile tale. I remember the first time he stayed out till dawn, claiming a chute ran over, and I smiled through the unease, too afraid to ask. I feel the weight of those excuses now, how they piled up like stones, how his laugh grew thin and his eyes drifted when he thought I wouldn't notice. I wrapped our life in a rosy haze, ignoring the chill seeping through the cracks, convinced our story would hold. I close my eyes, hearing the sea roar beyond the balcony, and I wonder how I missed the tide pulling him away. I didn't see it then, didn't want to. But the truth was already coiling in the shadows, waiting to strike. I sit with that memory, the cups cold, the silence vast, and I know now that a single message was all it took to rip the seams wide open. I sink into our evening rite, sliding the tea tray onto the table as dusk bleeds across the Brighton flat. The sea's low growl seeping through the panes. James sprawls across from me, his fingers restless near his phone, its sharp buzz slicing our talk of tide charts and his new shutter speed. I lift my cup, the heat a frail guard against the frost lacing our pauses, and I catch his eyes darting to the screen, a twitch I try to unsee. I toss out words about gulls slicing the sky, or clients he's dodged, but they drift uselessly, swallowed by the thickening hush. I feel dread twist inside me, a thread I unravel with a tight smile, blaming the shadows under his eyes on late edits. I perch there, pinned by our habit, the room shrinking as the sea's mutter grows faint. I watch him hunch over, shielding the phone like a secret, and I choke back the questions clawing up my chest. I stir my tea. The spoons clink, a hollow comfort, as if it could bridge the gulf I refused to name. I glimpse my face in the glass, drawn taut with doubt, and wonder when our nights became this brittle charade. I ramble on, voice thin against the silence, while his phone jolts again, a relentless hum I can't ignore. I tell myself it's just work, those late texts he brushed off as clients, but my heart hammers as the screen flares. I freeze, cup trembling in my hands, when Isabelle's words stab through the gloom. Last night was magic, my love. I lock on her name, a blade carving open our fragile shell, and the air turns jagged, the seas growl lost to the thunder in my skull. I sit there, pinned by the wreckage of our everyday, knowing this isn't a slip, but the fracture of the mask I've worn too long. I grip James's phone, my heartbeat a frantic staccato as I punch in our wedding date, the code a cruel jest while Isabelle's words sear into me. Last night was magic, my love. I feel the room fracture, my lungs locked tight, and I thrust the phone across the table. Its harsh skid a blade through the stillness of our Brighton flat. I pin him with my stare, his jaw tightening as he mutters a weak, "It's not what you think." But I lean closer, silent, until his resolve shatters, his voice a broken thread, confessing 6 months with Isabelle, a curator. I absorb each syllable, a barb sinking into my flesh, and I watch his eyes dart, begging for forgiveness I won't grant. I stand, my body firm against the chaos within, and my words slice the air, icy as the gales off the channel. Be gone when I return. I grab my coat, the doors slam a gunshot ringing in my wake, and I plunge into the night. The seas rumble a faint echo under the tempest in my mind. I taste brine on my tongue, my tears or the mist. I can't tell. And I stride toward the pier, its skeletal frame jagged against the sky. I hear the stones shift beneath my boots, a gritty requiem for the life I trusted, and I feel his betrayal harden, a weight plunging into unseen depths. I clutch the railing, fingers numb, and gaze at the waves, their restless dance a mirror to the fury uncurling inside me. I murmur his name, letting the wind snatch it away, and I know this rupture has severed our bond, casting me into a reality I can't escape. I drop onto the sagging mattress of a coastal inn, the walls groaning as the sea hammers below, a ceaseless thud that jars my splintered thoughts. I let the tears spill, hot streaks searing my skin, but I dig my nails into my palms, anchoring myself against the void threatening to pull me under. I sift through our past, the picnics with sand-dusted bread, his promises hissed against a rain-slashed dusk, and I flinch at how I miss the dimming in his voice. I lurch to the mirror, my face a gaunt mask, and I growl through clenched jaws. I'm worth more than his ghosts. I stumble out at first light, the sky a bruise of slate, and drift into a seaside cafe, its air thick with the tang of brewing leaves. I slump at a table, the chatter a muffled pulse, when Maggie, a barista with a rasp like gravel, shoves a mug my way and peers at me with a steely glint. I pour out the wreckage, Isabelle's venomous words, James's spineless admission, the home I thought was solid, and she cuts through my haze, her voice a rugged boy. You don't need him to rise, love. I feel her certainty ignite, a spark catching in the cinders of my chest, and I fish out my phone, his text from an hour ago flickering like a coward's last gasp. Let me explain. I erase it, my fingers unyielding in a defiant slash through the debris he made. I drink the tea, its sharp edge scouring my throat, and I peer through the misted window at the sea, its endless sweep daring me to claim something whole. I step into the dawn, the breeze clawing at my sleeves, and I sense his betrayal has flayed me raw, but I'll hammer my own strength from the ruin. I shove the flat's door wide, the air thick with dust as I cross the threshold of our hollowed life, spotting a note in James's jagged scrawl on the counter. I seize it, my chest tightening as his warped truth spills out. He fell into Isabelle's arms over a delusion, picturing me with a bookseller years ago, a ghost he fed in secret. I crush the paper, my knees buckling, and I recall Tom's casual grins over shop counters, the laughs James twisted into a betrayal that never was. I choke on the bitterness surging up, a rancid wave, when my phone blares, Isabelle's voice hissing through, "He's mine, you naive fool, always has been." I cut her off, her spite a lash across my frayed nerves, and I reel, battered by his lie and her triumph tearing through my core. I lurch to the balcony, the note balled in my fist, and I rip it apart, hurling the tatters into the sea, their spiral a fleeting blaze against the roiling dark. I watch them sink, devoured by the abyss, and rage ignites, a firestorm scorching my bones, then ebbs into a piercing clarity. His delusion isn't my yoke to carry. I grip the rail, the gale flaying my skin, and I feel his fabricated guilt slough off, a skin I shed in the briny mist. I turn to the barren flat, its quiet a forge rather than a grave, and I know this brutal truth has snapped my fetters, freeing me to claw my own way from the ashes. Days later, I etch my name on the papers to sell the flat. The inks rasp a death knell for its ghosts as I cart James's dusty lenses to a charity shop, their gleam fading like promises I've outgrown. I claim a studio atop the channel, its sills kissed by briny blasts, and I crack open my sketchbook, its blankness a dare as I sketch the sea's wild sway, a song he once jeered. I feel my grip firm, graphite dusting my palms as I coax life from the lines. And I revel with friends, our banter spilling over salty chips on the pier, a joy that hums louder than memory. I spot Isabelle at the cafe, her sneer a honed edge as she brags of James. But I lock eyes, unflinching, and stride off, my steps a bold tattoo on the planks. I plunge my evenings into art, the canvas drinking my fervor, and I unveil the message that broke the silence, its coils of soot and amber a testament to my breaking and bloom. I linger in the studio, the sea's sigh threading through, and I catch my silhouette in the pain, no longer a wraith, but a beacon, forged by the fire I've wrested from the void. I sweep through months of reclaimed days, my sketches stacking high as collectors claim them at a gallery tucked along Brighton's lanes, their murmurs a quiet tide beneath the sea's endless hymn beyond my studio. I stand amid the bustle of my first show that evening when the phone jolts with James's voice, a fractured plea for pardon trembling through. But I hold it with a calm I've forged, then banish it with a flick, my soul a sealed vault he can't breach. I turn to Maggie, her eyes glinting as she raises her glass, her voice a weathered roar. "You're a gale carved by your own hands now." I grin, her tribute sinking into my marrow, and I glide to my painting, the message that broke the silence. Its veins of obsidian and ember charting the tempest I've quelled. I linger there, the crowd's hum dissolving, and I trace my path in its depths. A woman who shattered, then welded herself anew, not from his void, but by my own relentless surge. I've learned that betrayal isn't our maker. It's the spark we kindle from the ruins that shapes us. James's deceit and Isabelle's barbs tore my silence apart, but they carved a truth fiercer than pain. My value blooms from my own relentless tide, not their shadows. I didn't heal by cursing them, but by sketching my way back, line by line into a woman unbent. What about you? What silence in your life roared awake when the world split beneath you? I want to hear your battles, the sparks you've turned to flame. Share them below. Let's thread our stories into something bold. I'll be here, tracing the sea's edge, awaiting the next wave. Join me again when it crashes, bringing new tales to tell.